Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 97 of the RTS tutorial series. In this video, we'll make our enemy training post. We'll also go over some of the logic that we're going to use throughout this section. This series and this video have been brought to you by my Patreon sponsors like Anemian Games. That said, fire up your editor, and let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the editor, and in today's video what we're going to do is we are going to set it up so that our enemy is able to spawn in a training post. The logic in this game that we're going to use moving forward is that the factory is the goal to destroy. We'll take care of that in the final section, by the way, but everything's going to relate to the factory in some way from this point forward in terms of location, in terms of what we need to destroy. If you remember, I mentioned in the other video that we're going to have 4 functions in here. Well, that 4th function is going to relate to the factory. Now, to make life easier, what we're going to do is we're going to actually put a new factory in. I'm just going to take this one, and I'm going to hold my Alt key down, and I'm going to drag this over here, and I'm going to set it to controlled by the AI, and I'm going to set that to AI 1. And another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom out a bit. I'm going to grab the fog of war. I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to set it below the map for now. So it's going to be at negative 620 so we can see what the AI is doing. And also to make life a tiny bit easier for debugging, I recommend deleting these units. I'm going to leave them in just because I shouldn't have to debug if I follow what I did in my prep. God knows I always make mistakes though, so I probably will end up deleting those. Now, before we go forward, I want to make some changes just to here real quick, and just want to put these into categories. I didn't do the cleanup like I said I would, so that's just going to go into resources, and I can't multi-select, I forgot about that. We're just going to move all these into resources, just so this is a bit neater, and when we edit the pawn, we are able to more easily change things on it. And I'm going to add this to a thing called lists, just because we're going to have a lot of lists. And once we've done that, we'll just also move the other float into our resources. And finally, our team, we're just going to set this as team. There we go. So now if we go back to our main graph here, and we find our enemy pawn, which I have deleted for some reason. Just drag that into there. We can see all that information. Resources, our AI as defaulted AI 1, just like this is now AI 1. So everything there is now set up. Now, I mentioned that we're going to have some bugs. We're going to see some of those bugs where our enemy pawn will try to go into that building thinking it's its own. We're not going to handle construction of the training post in this video. We'll take care of that in a later video. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our, we're just going to control S, save everything. We're going to go to our behavior tree. In our behavior tree, actually what I want to do is I want to switch that over to Blackboard, and I just want to get the behavior tree open in a different window. There we go. Sometimes I know that doesn't work. If it doesn't, you can switch between the two. So in here, first thing I'm going to have is a selector, and this, again, probably will change, but we're just going to start with a selector. Off the selector, we are going to do a sequence, and this sequence will handle the construction of our training post. So this will be our build training posts. Oh yeah, I probably can put spaces in this. Build training post, singular, actually. And now let's fix that typo. Sorry about that. Now, again, as I said, the logic might change as we go. Probably will, but we're going to start with this. And I'm going to create a new service. And it'll be of our BT service blueprint base. I'm going to pin that into the correct window. And I'm going to go back to my main window here. And I'm going to do BTS underscore enemy state check. And I'm just going to drop this into my services. So move there, go back into here. And in here, we have a few things we need to take care of. So this is probably where we're going to spend the bulk of our time. We're going to do a event receive I'm back to my old habits of getting the I in the wrong spot. Tick AI. And just like before, we're going to do that cast that we've done previously. I tried to find a way around this, and it just didn't work. So we're going to cast to enemy pawn. We're going to create a pure cast from this. And we're going to promote to a variable, and this will be our enemy pawn ref. And just going to put this into a references folder before I forget to do that. We're going to do an is valid check with the question mark. And we're going to check, is this valid? So we only want to do this once. If it is valid, we're going to continue on. If it's not valid, we'll actually do the cast then. All right. And let me just line that up a bit. So we're going to have an event here that's checked if they're under attack. We're not going to take care of that in this video. In fact, that'll be one of the last things we do in the section. We need everything else in place first. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have an event where we're checking if there is a engineer or a training post. And the logic that I'm using here, just to walk you through it before I do it, is if there is a training post and no engineer, then train an engineer. We'll take care of that in a later video. If there's an engineer and no training post, well, we need to check if there's a barrack. We'll take care of that in a later video. If there are no barracks, build a barracks, then a training post. In other words, if there's an engineer and no training post, build a training post. We will have a step in there where it builds a barracks first, and it's just so we can get rid of some of the potential issues that might crop up where the unit is tired and it needs rest. But we'll take care of the training post first, then we'll do the constructing of the training post, then we'll take care of the barracks issue, and then we'll reverse this and take care of, if we have the training post but no engineer, we'll construct the engineer first. Because we need the engineer to be able to build other buildings. If we don't have other buildings, we can't spawn in infantry units, we can't spawn in our resource gatherers, so that's the logic there. But we're going to expand this as we go. So the way we are going to do that check is we are going to create a new function. So let's just create that function right now. And that function will be check for engineer and training post. Now, I'm going to intentionally skip a step in here to show a potential bug. And we'll be able to see it when we debug our enemy base at the end of the video. Or towards the end. We'll actually fix that bug before we get through it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to grab my enemy pawn reference here. And I want to get the list of constructed buildings. And here's the hint. The error is in this part. List of constructed... Oops, sorry. That's the wrong one. List of constructed buildings. And we want to get it, not set it. And we're going to do a for each loop with break. Because we only need to know if there is one training post. We don't care beyond that. So we're going to break if we find a training post. So I'm just going to move this up there. I'm going to leave this back here because I'm going to pull other things off of it. What I need to do is get from the array element the class of the building. So we get class. We want to know, is this class our training post? So we're going to do equal. And we're going to search for training post. So we have our RTS BP, or training post BP. And we're going to do a branch off of this. And all we're going to do, if I can plug that in, is we are going to set a local variable. And that local variable will be has training. Sorry, I just want to make sure I didn't miss that I didn't. Training post. We're going to set it both on the true. We're going to set it as true off the true. And false off the false. If this is true, we want to break from this loop. So we're going to come around to this break here. And we're just going to plug some reroutes in so this is a little bit easier to read. There we go. In fact, we're actually going to have one more reroute. So we have that nice little curved shape there. Line those up. Drag that out a bit. Too far. There we go. All right, and I'm going to skip a step, as I said, from this completed. I'm going to go to the final thing we need to do, just so we can see potential pitfall. So we're going to do another for loop here with break. What we're going to search for this time is our units. So we're going to grab from here, if I can get those to line up nicely, a list of units. We want to get that. And we want to do a for each with break. And And we're going to do the same thing we did previously. In fact, I'm just going to move this over that way, plug that into the completed. All right, we want to get the class of the unit, because we want to know, is this a engineer? So get class. We are going to check, is this equal to our engineer? So our RTS engineer unit, if it is, we're just going to do the same thing we did up here. We're going to do a branch with a has engineer. And actually, probably should put the word local at the end of both of these. So I'm just going to rename these local. There we go. So if we have one, we will put it as true off the true. If not, we'll do it false off the false. Just line those up a bit. All right. So has engineer local, false is false, and true is true. Again, if this is true, we want to break from this and continue on. Now, again, as I said, I've skipped a step. And it might not be too obvious, but it relates to the buildings. And think about it for a minute, what we're actually looking for here. Just going to line those up a bit better. Sorry, it's just driving me crazy. But again, we'll see that error towards the end. Now, off of this completed, we're going to have a return node. And I'm going to give myself a bit more space. I'm going to grab both those reroutes and just drag them down here. And we're going to pass out the information of our training post and our engineer if we have them or not. And let's just rename this. Get rid of the local and the ones. There we go. And there we go. All right, so that takes care of this function. It's a fairly simple function so far. We're checking, do we have a training post? If we do, then stop checking the buildings. We're done. Then we check, do we have an engineer? If we do, break from this, we're done. Pass this information out. It can go all the way through the loop, not find a training post, and come out here. It can go all the way through this, not find an engineer, and come out. If both of these are false, well, there's going to be a slight problem for the AI. So we need to give it one or the other, or both, whenever we create our AI. So just think about that for a moment. There might be ways you might want to go around that sort of issue, but there are some potential problems. All right, let's go back to our event graph, and let's grab this check. We're going to plug into the is valid, put a reroute in there, plug that in, and then take these nodes, collapse them down to our reference cast, and let's just get these in the right order. Oh, that should not be that way. We're going to get rid of that. We'll fix it in a moment. And this will be execute. This will be enemy pawn. I always forget I don't need that reroute, because the reroute technically should be inside of here. Let's just line that back up. Plug that into there. And there we go. Okay. So we have our reference cast. We then check for our engineer unit. And again, I'm going to put a note in here that before this, check if under attack. So we're going to add something in between this reference cast and here. All right. Now, I wanted to do a fancy either NOR exclusive or not AND gate setup, but I just couldn't find a way to do it where I didn't end up recreating a whole bunch of steps afterwards that we're going to do anyway. So what we're going to do is, instead of doing something fancy, we're just going to do 3 simple branches. We're going to have one branch here. We're going to have one off the false, or one off the true as well, which I did first, clearly. And all we're doing here is we're going to check, do we have a training post? If we don't have a training post, do we have an engineer? If we don't have an engineer, then we're just going to actually do a print string and do a comment that the AI is doomed, because I can't do anything at this point, really. These 2 elements are some of the most important elements in our AI. And in fact, even for the player. If the player doesn't have either of these, they can't create new units and they can't create new buildings. So that's why we're doing this first. These are vital. And the AI is doomed in this case. We're going to get rid of this at the end, but I just want to make sure that this is firing. All right, so now that we've done that, we need to go to our enemy base BT here. We need to add in a new service. We need to do our enemy state check here. And before we can even test this, we need to go back to our controller AI And in our enemy controller AI, we need to actually call up our blackboard and blueprint. I said I was going to do that in the last video, and I completely forgot about that. So we're going to do use blackboard, which we did with our pawn. Oh, sorry, what we did for our infantry unit. Our units, not just our infantry unit. We are going to do our BB enemy. We're going to pull off of this, and we're going to run behavior tree. And the behavior tree we're going to run is our enemy base. We're going to plug that into there, and now we can see it's going to say our AI is doomed. AI is doomed! Okay, with that done, let's go back to our status check here, and let's finish this out. So we have our sort of, they don't have what they need, they're hosed. Next, what we need to do is we need to check again, do we have an engineer here? And the reason why we're checking is, well, if they have both, then they don't need to worry about these. If they only have one, then they need to get the other on the map right away, unless they're under attack. So we're going to do another print string off this true, because off this true, we're saying they have a training post, true, they have an engineer. We're going to do another print string, except for the AI isn't doomed. The AI is ready for action. And we're going to test that one real quick by going back to our map. We're going to go to our buildings, not our blueprints. We're going to go to our military, and we're going to grab a training post. We're just going to place it there. It's nowhere really useful, I realize. We're going to set to is build, and we're going to put it under the control of the AI. We're going to grab a unit, and this gives us a moment to test something else and to show another bug that we need to address. We're going to put our engineer unit on the map. We're going to make sure it is not spawned in, it is controlled by the AI, and it's AI 1. AI is ready for action. Now, oh, that's the wrong unit. We can't select it, which is what we set up in the first video of this section, but we can open the profile, and we need to address that issue. Also, you just noticed that profile is missing some buttons. That is because I forgot to add them back into this version of the file. So hopefully by the time that I'm looking at our player units again, I'll remember to add them back in. I'm so sorry for skipping that. That doesn't really affect this video, though. All right, so what we're going to do next, we'll take care of the things on the screen in a moment, but we're going to take care of those after we do our next step, is we're going to take care of the true here off our has engineer but doesn't have a training post, and our false here of has a training post but doesn't have a engineer. And what we're going to do is we're going to create two new variables. One will be our state, which will be a blackboard key selector, so we want to make sure we can edit this. You know, I forget that a lot. And this will be a blackboard key. And then we need one more, which will be state enum, and this will go into our enums folder. And this will be our state enum. We're going to grab our state enum, we're going to set it here, and we are going to set it as needs engineer, not needs barrack, needs engineer. We're going to grab our state blackboard key selector and do set blackboard key value as enum. Plug that into there. Plug that into there. Put the reroutes in to make it all pretty and lovely and joyous and something. That is not how I wanted that to go. Actually, wait, let's do that way again, and then do that. Okay. That's also not how I wanted that to go. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to paste them down here. Plug that into there, and change this to needs training post. So, there we go. That takes care of what we're going to do in our state check for now. We will have other things we'll need to do in here, of course, you know, clearly, and other states we need to check, but that's the start for right now. Let's go back here. We need to make sure state says state. It does. Awesome. So what we can do here is we can add a blackboard key as a decorator, and this decorator, so if we select it, will be our state is equal to needs training post. So we'll build our training post off of this. And to build our training post, well, what we need to do is we actually are going to build it in relation to the factory. And we're going to skip between the new task we're going to create and our enemy pawn. So create new task. It'll be btt task underscore blueprint base. And pop back into your enemy AI folder. Find that task, and that will be btt underscore construct enemy building. I just don't want to get confused with engineer or eng construct building. And we're going to put this in tasks, move there, go back into here, drag off of here, and we're going to do our construct enemy building. I almost clicked engineer after my comment. Just double click that, pop it open. And in here, we're going to have that same cast again. So we'll do our event, receive, execute AI, and we're going to do our cast just like before. So I'm really not going to walk you through this one over and over again because you should be familiar with it already. I said that so many times in the last set of videos that people actually noticed how tired I was of saying it. Like my voice was just clearly, I'm done. I am done. Please stop making me say this. And as I said earlier in this video, or maybe it was last video, I'm starting to lose track. I'm doing these all together. That I tried to find a way around this, but couldn't, and I'm sorry about that. I really was hopeful that we could find a way to actually use the controller. Now, you can do that, but the problem is you don't get access because it's the parent of the parent of the parent, so you don't get access to the variables that we need. Now, if you want to make this better, you could do a C++ class and cast there and not have as much overhead. You can use interfaces. There's a bunch of other things that you could do to make this slightly better. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to see, do they have a factory? And I already mentioned that the end state will be there is no factory, but I want to make sure they have one, and I want to make sure it's valid. And that is valid as the extra step. So we're going to go back to our enemy pawn, and we're going to create that fourth function that I mentioned, which is called getFactory. And getFactory is a fairly simple function. All we're going to do is we're going to get a list of our constructed buildings. We're going to go through them, and we're going to do a for each with break. We're doing a lot of with breaks in these videos, it seems. And we are going to check for the class. Get class. And we want to know, is this class equal to our factory? It would help if I spelled factory, right? So BP or RTS factory. So RTS factory BP. Can't remember if it was BP RTS or BP factory RTS. We're going to do a branch. And we are going to create a new variable from this, which will be named as factory reference. So promote to variable, factory ref. It's technically, I'm going to put it in a references folder because it is a reference to the building. And we're going to store this on true, and I'm just going to line everything up real quick. If it is true, we're going to break. And I'm just going to put a few reroutes in just to make this a little bit neater. And the other reason why we're going to have that is valid, and just to make sure that we don't accidentally pass something through that shouldn't be there, we're going to clear this factory reference on the false just by setting it equal to nothing here. So there we go. We're nearly done. We're going to do a return. We're going to pass this factory out. Really have to remember I can't do it that way. Get factory, plug into there. And there's our factory reference leaving. All right, save that. Go back to your construct enemy building, and we're going to grab our enemy pawn reference here, and we're going to do our factory. So we're going to do a get factory. There's our factory reference. We're going to plug that into the is valid, plug that into there. Make sure not to put a reroute in that I don't really need. Collapse a macro, and this is our reference cast. Again, just do the cleanup because I don't like having the extra words on the screen. I guess my idea did not work. But hey, such is life, right? Maybe I do need the reroute and have the reroute on this side. I made that mistake in the other videos too, as you know. Also, just to keep things... I forgot you can't do it once you've opened this, or once you've closed it the first time. This is our enemy pawn. So now that we've done that, what we're going to do is we are going to check, is this valid? Is valid. Without that one. Is valid with the question mark. And if it's valid, we're going to start construction. So we're going to create a custom event called start construction. So start construction. If it is not valid, we are going to finish execute with a fail. All right, now we need to create 2 new variables. You're familiar with these already. So one is our state. Again, this will be a Blackboard key. And before we go farther forward, this is going to be references. This is going to be a Blackboard key selector. And we need one for our enum. So our state enum, and this will be our state enum. And we need to put this into a folder called enums. All right, so we're going to grab our state. We are going to get value as enum. We're going to take our state's enum here, and we're just going to right click and we're going to switch on state enum. There we go. We're just going to move this down for a minute, plug that into there, and line these up. Plug that into there. We have our convert like we did on our other Blackboard enums to switches. Let's line that up a bit better. On normal, stroke under attack, we're going to finish execute, and we're actually going to mark this as successful. Just because it shouldn't be coming through here, and if it is getting to the stage, then we've already finished, therefore it's successful. On our needs training post, ooh, there's a typo in that. Let's go to our enum and fix that typo. Needs training post 2. Get rid of the save it. Delete the 2. Go back here. There we go. That's going to drive me crazy otherwise. We're going to spawn actor from class, and we're going to spawn our training post. All right. So we have a few things to set in here that are a bit different. Well, we're going to leave this collision handling as default. The mesh is the same under construction. That's the same. Our controlled by AI is now true. We are going to get our enemy pawn. We are going to get the team it's on, and we are going to pass that information through. There we go. And also, we'll handle reducing the resources of building this in a later video. So we'll also have a resource check, because there are other ways the AI can be fouled up. And we are going to then get our enemy pawn again. We're going to get our factory. So get factory ref. And we want to get this actor's transformation. And we're going to do a little bit more with the transformation in later videos, like rotate the building. But for now, we are just going to set our new building to be nearby. We're going to do a multiply, which is compose transforms. We're going to plug that into there. We're going to actually split this pin. And with the split pin, what we're going to do, we're going to leave scale as is. We're going to pull off the make location and do make, or off the make location. We're going to do make off the location and do make vector. Sorry, I was saying the 2 steps into one, or saying the 2 things. You know what I mean. We're going to get we're going to do random float in range. We're going to set this as a minimum of 150 to a maximum of 15,000. We're going to duplicate this, because we don't want the values to be the same. One will go in the X, one will go in the Y. The Z should stay 0. Oh God, the Z should stay 0. And we're going to pass those together, plug that into there. Rotation we'll take care of in a later video. Once we've done this, we're going to again get our enemy pawn reference here, and we want to update our buildings. So set all buildings. So we'll update our list of buildings needing to be constructed. All right. So if we hit save, that's all set. Save that. Go into your AI or your behavior tree for your enemy. Make sure that's set to state. Save. And let's delete our building there. Let's hit play. And you can see it spawned in a building. Now I'm slightly worried that that's above the ground a bit. Oh, no, it isn't. Okay. So it's spawned in a building. Now, as I mentioned, there's a slight bug. Well, we can actually see that bug by going into our enemy base here. It's still firing this. Don't think you can find a valid spot to put it, but this is still firing. And the reason why this is still firing, if you check here, go into here for a minute, is, well, we still don't have a training post. However, we have one under construction and we have an engineer. So what we're going to do to clean this up so it doesn't keep adding training posts in when it eventually figures out how to, is we are going to add in that middle step that I said I skipped. So that middle step is actually just a repetition of the first step. But we're going to use one different variable in there. We're going to have one thing before that as well. So we're going to break this execute from the completed. We're going to have a branch first. This is the difference. If they already have a training post, we don't care. We don't care if one's under construction or not. If they don't have a training post, if one gets destroyed, we'll update buildings, and then we do care. What we're going to do is we're going to go off the false, and we're going to grab all of these nodes. I can also grab that reroute I missed there. And we're going to duplicate them here. Just move that way. Plug that into the false. And we're going to move that down so it lines up the false. We're just going to move this a bit farther forward. There we go. And add in a few more reroutes because we need to pull stuff off. So, one of the things we need to pull off is a check for, or is our list of unconstructed buildings. I said I left that typo in intentionally, or made that typo intentionally, so that I could tell the two apart. So we're going to go through our list of unconstructed buildings, and then we'll go down to here. If this is true, we'll just go down here right away. So I'm just going to put a reroute in, drag off of there, and drag this down there. So if we have a training post already, we go down here. If we don't have a training post, we checked. We have an unconstructed training post. All right, so if we hit play, AI is ready for action. It sees that it has a training post under construction, and it sees that there's an engineer on the map. Now again, if we delete that, we get some fun stuff of AI is doomed still. So if we undelete that guy, let me just hit F and come back there. Hit play again. We see that it has a slight issue in the placement, but again, we'll worry about the placement in a bit, and we'll make sure it can't collide. That actually shouldn't have spawned in. So we'll worry about that in a later video. As I said, there are going to be some bugs, and we're going to work through them step by step. But I want to get to the logical bugs first, and then take care of the bugs like that. So that takes us through everything I wanted to do in this video. Now I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup at the end here, and I realize I'm nearing 40 minutes on my record file, and there's going to be some editing because I had a coughing fit part way in. But I just want to get rid of some stuff that's going to drive me crazy. So the first thing I want to do is I want to open up our unit master. Let's go to our unit master, and I just want to make sure we can't open up our enemy's HUD. So we have our set HUD here. We're going to add another and in, and we're going to take our is controlled by AI. I need to clean these up, and we're going to do not. So if it's not controlled by our AI, then we can open it up. So if we hit play now, we can no longer open up the enemy, but we can open up ours. And again, I know the things are missing. I commented on that already. Another thing I want to do, actually no, we'll take care of that in the next video, because that's where we're going to start getting into sending the units to construct stuff. We'll add some checks into here to make sure that our units that are controlled by the enemy are never just idle. They're always doing something, so the AI is always ticking and always acting like the player might, and we'll move forward from there. All right, that said, this series has been brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Tristan Ludovic. If you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button down below. It really does help this channel out. And if you want to be here when the next video comes out, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon. And if you want to help this channel out further, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. As always, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.